$60,000? You expect me to pay for a car I never agreed to buy? My hands trembled as I stared at the email from Lisa, my sister, with its attached invoice displaying a sum that could buy a small house in some states. The Cadillac she'd gifted our parents on their 45th anniversary last month. The same car that had made my carefully planned Italian vacation package look like a cheap afterthought, now apparently needed financing. By me. I looked at the family photo on my desk. Mom, Dad, Lisa, and me, all smiling on a beach vacation 15 years ago. The last time we'd all seemed genuinely happy together. Dad's arm was around my shoulder then, a gesture of affection that had become increasingly rare as the years passed. Mom stood proudly next to Lisa, whose teenage smile already carried that hint of entitlement I'd come to recognize so well. With sudden clarity, I realized this moment wasn't just about a car or money, it was about 4 decades of the same pattern repeating itself. The responsible daughter, always expected to clean up the messes. The favorite daughter, never facing consequences. My finger hovered over the keyboard. For once in my life, I wasn't going to solve everyone else's problems. I closed my email and opened Facebook instead of my checkbook. It was time for the truth to come out. Flashback, childhood patterns. Growing up as Amy Harris, the responsible daughter, had been a lifelong audition for approval that never came. I remember standing in our kitchen at 16, calculator in hand, helping Dad figure out the monthly budget while Mom praised Lisa for the C- she'd managed to scrape in algebra. It's just not her strong suit, Mom had said, stroking Lisa's hair. But she tries so hard. I'd gotten straight A's since kindergarten. No one stroked my hair. That same year, I started working weekends at the local cafe. My first paycheck went straight into a savings account. For college, I told my parents, hoping they'd be proud of my foresight. Dad had nodded approvingly, but Mom had frowned. "You're spending too much time working and not enough on being a teenager," she'd said. "Look at Lisa. She's on the cheerleading squad, has lots of friends. Don't you want that?" What I wanted was recognition for who I was, not criticism for who I wasn't. My father, Robert, had grown up with a father who demanded perfection and delivered criticism. "I never want to be that kind of parent," he'd once told me during a rare moment of openness when I found him looking through old family albums late one night. My father never thought anything I did was good enough. Always pushing for more, more, more. Yet somehow, with me, he'd fallen into the same pattern, expecting perfection while lavishing warmth on my sister. He'd meant well, but lacked the strength to break the cycle. Sometimes I caught him looking at me with something like guilt in his eyes, quickly masked when our gazes met. Mother was different. Martha Harris, former high school teacher, cared deeply about appearances. Her own mother had been the neighborhood gossip queen, judging families by their front lawns and holiday decorations. Mom had absorbed those lessons well. Lisa's dramatic struggles gave her something to fix, to worry about publicly, to discuss sympathetically over coffee with friends. Poor Lisa, struggling with math again. We've hired the third tutor this year. My stability offered no such opportunities for maternal heroism. No dramatic narratives to share, no visible battles to fight on my behalf. Just quiet competence that required no intervention and therefore earned no special attention. At the office, as a senior consultant at Reynolds Accounting, I'd built the kind of career my parents should have been proud of. My corner office overlooked downtown, a testament to 20 years of hard work and responsible choices. The kind of choices Lisa had never made. I'd just finished reviewing quarterly projections for our biggest client when my assistant knocked. "There's a hand-delivered envelope for you, Miss Harris." The courier said it was personal. Inside was a handwritten invoice for the Cadillac, complete with a TSA note from Lisa about how she was counting on me to help out the family in this difficult time. Classic Lisa dramatics. I checked her Instagram. 3 new posts since yesterday, all at expensive restaurants or boutiques. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. "Amy? It's Uncle John. My father's brother, the only family member who ever seemed to see me clearly. From childhood, he'd been the one who noticed my achievements, who remembered my birthday with gifts that reflected my interests rather than what a normal girl should want. "I just heard about the car situation," he said, his voice grave. Your father withdrew $30,000 from his retirement account. There were penalties. They're in real trouble. I closed my eyes. Let me guess, they blame me? Your mother does. She says if you just help out with the payments instead of making a scene, everything would be fine. Your father just stares at his feet when she talks about it. The injustice of it bubbled up like acid. And Lisa? What's her contribution to fixing this mess? Uncle John sighed. Playing the victim. Telling everyone how you've betrayed the family by refusing to help. She's been calling all the relatives. Your mother's been backing her up, saying you've always been cold and calculating with money. Each word felt like a slap. After decades of managing my parents' tax returns, creating their retirement plans, even setting up automatic bill payments when dad started forgetting, this was how they saw me. There's more, Uncle John continued. This isn't the first time Lisa's done something like this. Your cousin Rachel told me about a surprise vacation Lisa organized for your parents 3 years ago, a Caribbean cruise they somehow ended up paying for themselves. Flashback. The anniversary party. The memory of last month's anniversary party still stung. I'd spent a year planning their Italian trip. Mother had always talked about seeing Venice before she got too old to travel. I remembered her wistfully paging through a travel magazine when I was 12, showing me pictures of gondolas and saying, "Someday, when your father and I retire." I'd researched small, authentic restaurants away from tourist traps. I'd even learned basic Italian phrases to write in their travel journal. The travel agent had helped me arrange private tours of the Vatican and Florence's art galleries, knowing my father's interest in Renaissance history. I'd use my vacation days to visit the travel agency during lunch breaks, picked specialty chocolates to accompany the gift, even contacted their doctor to ensure mother's arthritis medication would be suitable for international travel. When I arrived at their house that morning to help set up, Mom was already in a state. Lisa said she'd be here at 8 to help with the decorations. It's nearly 10. She glanced at me, noticing the bags I carried but not the dark circles under my eyes from staying up late finalizing details. But those platters on the dining table, would you? No. Thank you for coming early, or good to see you. Just another task. I spent the next 3 hours arranging flowers, setting tables, and fielding calls from confused relatives who'd received conflicting information about the party time. Lisa had apparently told half the family a different start hour than what was on the invitations I'd sent. Lisa had arrived 2 hours late in a cloud of expensive perfume and excuses. Traffic was insane, and you wouldn't believe the morning I've had. The relatives all gravitated toward her immediately. She'd always had that effect, drawing people in with her energy and charm. I'd watched her whole court, telling exaggerated stories about her freelance design career that barely paid her rent. Her Instagram portrayed her as a successful entrepreneur, but I knew the truth. She'd been borrowing from our parents for years, small amounts that added up to substantial sums. When gift-giving time came, Lisa had orchestrated a theatrical reveal, leading our parents outside to see the gleaming Cadillac with its enormous red bow. You deserve nothing but the best, she'd proclaimed dramatically, cameras flashing as relatives captured the moment. Mother had actually cried, hugging Lisa like she'd given them the moon. You're always so thoughtful, she'd said, loud enough for everyone to hear. When I'd handed them my carefully wrapped box with the Italian vacation documents, their reaction had been tepid at best. Oh, how practical, Mother had said, barely glancing at the tickets. But I'm not sure we can travel that far anymore. My arthritis, you know. The arthritis that hadn't prevented her from rushing outside to see Lisa's gift, apparently. Dad had at least tried to show appreciation, his eyes lingering on the Vatican tour I'd arranged. But Lisa had quickly interrupted. Well, my gift was obviously much more expensive and useful, she'd announced loudly. I mean, a car versus a vacation? No comparison. Instead of correcting her rudeness, our parents had just smiled indulgently and suggested everyone start eating. I'd stood there, holding the Italian phrase book I'd brought as a supplementary gift, now forgotten in the excitement over the car. Later, as I helped clear dishes while Lisa charmed the remaining guests, I overheard Mom talking to her friend Betty. Lisa's always been so generous, so big-hearted, she'd said. We worry about her spending too much on us, but that's just her nature. She feels things so deeply. I dropped a plate, the crash interrupting their conversation. Sorry, I'd muttered, kneeling to clean up the mess. As always. At the apartment, decision time. It was nearly midnight when I finished writing my social media post. I'd deleted and rewritten it a dozen times, struggling between the lifetime habit of protecting family secrets and the burning need to tell my truth. The cursor blinked accusingly on my screen. Was I really going to do this? Air our family's dirty laundry in public? The voice of my mother echoed in my head. Family business stays in the family, Amy. That's what responsible people do. But where had responsibility gotten me? A lifetime of being taken for granted, of watching Lisa receive praise for minimal effort while my contributions were expected and unremarkable. Lisa's Instagram feed glowed on my second monitor. Glossy photos of brunches and shopping trips, the carefully curated image of success that masked mountains of debt. Her most recent post showed her celebrating life at an upscale wine bar, the same day she'd sent me the invoice for our parents' car. Next to it was a family photo from the anniversary party, everyone beaming at the camera, the perfect family portrait that hid decades of uneven love. My smile looked strained even then, though I tried my best to play my part. I'd started my post writing emotionally, full of accumulated hurt, but edited it down to something more measured. More me. My final post was simple. Just facts. The car gift that wasn't really a gift. The pattern of different standards. The retirement savings now depleted. No inflammatory language, no accusations, just the truth I'd been hiding for years. I included a photo, not of the family, but of the Italian vacation documents alongside the invoice Lisa had sent. Evidence. I took a deep breath and hit post before I could change my mind. My hand was shaking. I expected to feel guilty. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar. Liberation. The aftermath. My phone began buzzing with notifications almost immediately. I'd turned off the sound, but the screen kept lighting up with new messages and comments. Uncle John called first. It's about time, he said simply. I'm proud of you, Amy. Then came messages from cousins, family friends, even Lisa's former roommate Sarah with her own story about my sister's elaborate birthday party that Sarah had ultimately funded. She threw this huge surprise birthday party for me last year, Sarah wrote. Rented a whole restaurant, ordered expensive champagne, had a live band, everything. Then 2 weeks later, she started hinting that since it was my party, I should help pay for it. I ended up covering most of the cost because she guilted me into it. I thought I was the only one she did this to. By morning, my post had been shared dozens of times within our extended social circle. Lisa had tried damage control, posting a tearful video about how hurt she was by my attack, but the comments section quickly filled with people sharing similar stories of her grand gestures that others ended up financing. Mother's friend Betty, who'd witnessed her favoritism for decades, had apparently confronted her at their weekly bridge game. Betty asked if it ever occurred to them that maybe you had to be independent because they were too busy bailing Lisa out. Uncle John reported during our daily update calls. Your mother tried to defend herself, said they only helped Lisa more because she needed it, while you were always so capable. Betty wasn't having it. Asked her point blank if they'd ever considered that their different treatment was why you two turned out so differently. The most unexpected call came from young Sophia, Uncle John's daughter. At 18, she was just starting college, navigating the complex waters of family expectations. I've always been told to be more like Lisa, fun, spontaneous, the life of the party, she said, her voice hesitant. Aunt Martha and Uncle Robert always made it seem like being responsible was boring. But watching you stand up for yourself made me realize it's okay to be who I am. It's okay to have boundaries and expect fair treatment. Mom says you're her new hero. That conversation had brought unexpected tears. The idea that my small act of truth-telling might spare another young woman decades of the same struggle felt like redemption. Lisa, meanwhile, was experiencing real consequences perhaps for the first time. Her carefully cultivated image as the fun, spontaneous sister who lived life to the fullest had taken a serious hit. Friends were distancing themselves, wary of her expensive suggestions for outings. Someone had even started a spreadsheet documenting all the gifts and treats she'd given that others had ultimately paid for. My parents were facing their own reckoning. The retirement account withdrawal had caught the attention of their financial advisor, who'd called me concerned about their sudden financial decisions. Their friends, who had watched them favor Lisa and criticize me for years, were finally speaking up. Dad called once, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. Amy, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Dad, I'd replied, surprising myself with my calmness. This isn't about punishing anyone. It's about telling the truth. He'd been silent for a long moment. I never wanted to be like my father, he finally said, his voice breaking. But I think I might have been worse. At least he treated us all the same. That admission had cost him, I could tell. We'd agreed to talk more when things were calmer. Planning the escape, for the first time in my adult life, I requested vacation time without feeling guilty. 2 weeks in Mexico, not for anyone else, just for me. You're overdue, my boss had said, signing the request immediately. You haven't taken a real vacation in 3 years, Amy. The firm will survive without you for 2 weeks. I mapped out an itinerary that reflected my interests. Museums in Mexico City, cooking classes in Oaxaca, beaches in Tulum, Mayan ruins at Chichen Itza. I'd always wanted to learn photography, so I splurged on a new camera, not the budget model I would normally have chosen, but the one the salesperson recommended for serious enthusiasts. I bought hiking boots instead of sensible walking shoes, colorful sundresses instead of my usual neutral palette, a wide-brimmed hat for beach days. Small acts of self-indulgence that felt revolutionary after decades of practical choices. Every evening after work, I researched different destinations and experiences, building an itinerary that was purely for me, not to please anyone else or prove anything to anyone. I joined online travel forums, asking questions about solo female travelers in Mexico, best local restaurants, off the beaten path experiences. The trip planning became a form of therapy, each decision a small reclamation of myself. I realized how rarely I'd made choices based solely on my own preferences. Even my apartment, my car, my wardrobe, all had been selected with an eye toward practicality and others' approval. The day before departure, I received a thick envelope in the mail containing a card signed by 20 relatives, including photos I'd never seen before, moments from my childhood when I'd achieved something or helped someone, times my parents had overlooked in their focus on Lisa. We should have spoken up sooner, my Aunt Linda had written. But we're so proud of you now. There was a photo of me at 8, proudly holding a science fair trophy. Another of me teaching my younger cousin to ride a bike. Me at high school graduation, standing alone while my parents comforted Lisa, who'd been upset about something now forgotten. I packed those photos in my suitcase along with my new camera and hiking boots. Small talismans of the person I'd always been, now finally seen. The phone call. I was in the taxi to the airport when my phone rang, an unrecognized number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. It was my mother. Amy? Her voice sounded older, uncertain. Not the confident tone I'd grown up with. I heard you're going to Mexico. Yes, I kept my voice neutral, eyes fixed on the passing landscape. I'm leaving today. A long pause. I could hear her breathing, could picture her sitting in her favorite chair by the living room window, perhaps twisting her wedding ring as she often did when nervous. Your father and I have been talking, she continued. All this with Lisa and the car. It's opened our eyes to some things. We're making her attend financial counseling. I said nothing, waiting. The taxi driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, then tactfully turned up the radio. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry about Italy. You put so much thought into that gift, and we just threw it back in your face. Yes, I said simply. You did. Another pause, longer this time. I heard what might have been a muffled sob. I always thought I was being a good mother, she said finally. That Lisa needed more support, more encouragement. I never realized. I never saw how it affected you. Betty showed me your old report cards yesterday. All those achievements we barely acknowledged. I swallowed hard, unexpected emotion rising. It wasn't about the grades, Mom. It was about being seen. Really seen for who I am. I know that now, she whispered. Too late, I suppose. The taxi turned onto the airport access road. My flight was in 2 hours. Have a good trip, Amy. Be safe. And maybe when you get back, we could have coffee, just us. I considered this. The lifetime of patterns, the hurt, the recent revelations, but also the unmistakable change in her voice, the first real acknowledgement I could remember. Maybe. I'll let you know when I'm back. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps a crack in a very old wall. Taking flight, as the plane took off toward Mexico, I watched America recede beneath me. 42 years of trying to be the perfect daughter, of measuring my worth against impossible standards, growing smaller with the altitude. I ordered a glass of champagne, another small indulgence, and toasted myself silently. To truth, to boundaries, to second acts. My phone buzzed with a message from Carol. Have an amazing time. Can't wait to hear all about it. By the way, Lisa's car got repossessed yesterday. Karma's real. I smiled and turned off my phone. Lisa's drama, my parents' issues, the family complications, all of it could wait. For the next 2 weeks, I had ancient ruins to explore, beaches to walk, food to taste, and photographs to take. The woman across the aisle noticed my camera. Photographer? She asked. Just learning, I replied, then corrected myself. Actually, yes, I am a photographer. Another small claim on my new identity. Mexico has incredible light, she said. You'll come back with beautiful images. I would come back with more than that, I thought. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first, and it felt absolutely right.